welcome everybody to the first ever Streakers Island podcast. We are ready to rock and roll here. I'm Jacob Moore, sports analyst, formerly from a certain area called sports. We won't get into the names. And we got Dan Moore, More for Your Money, and Chazzy. This is going to be an awesome show tonight, guys. We have so much to talk about. We got NFL playoffs. We're going to be taking a closer look at the World Jrs and what the heck happened to Team Canada. We're going to go over a bit more into some of the Canadian teams in the NHL, and the Toronto Argos are finally starting to get in gear and make some moves. But now, let's jump right into those World Juniors. Now, to start off with the World Juniors, let's just talk about the winners. Chazzy, I know you were not surprised at all to see U.S. getting the gold.
Back-to-back team. Well, it starts with the goaltending with that team. You have the team chemistry, coaching. They're destined on this one. They're just destined on this tournament.
Now, Dan, you and I are watching that game together, and you got to admit, you got to feel bad for Finland. Like, Rippinen, their netminder, played outstanding, but why do you think they just couldn't get the job done and get that gold?
America just came out very, very strong in the second half of the game. You know, at first, Finland was dominating, and Finland was slowing down the game and slowing down the pace, which comes in a fair favor. And then America decided to wake up after trailing 3-1. Like, oh, wait a minute, we better start playing hockey here. And at any day, America's just a better team than Finland. But sad to see as it came so close, we went in overtime, which is pretty amazing. Finland's got to be proud.
You know, I agree with you there, and I think with Team Finland, they love that shutdown game. But as soon as America was able to open up the ice, if it wasn't for Finland's goalie, I think that game might have been a blowout. Like, Chazzy, you and I talked about that a bit. That American team, the speed they have is just unreal.
Oh, it starts with Teddy up on forward, and then you got Cole, and the amount of points they generated off the power play in the whole tournament as a team, it's astronomical. So they definitely, anytime that you're going to win a tournament like this, your special teams has to be special, and your goaltending has to be solid, and they got that at a tray.
You could definitely. I think that's an interesting way to segue into our bronze medal winner of the tournament, which was Sweden. Sweden had the best power play in the tournament, and that was a big difference for them to win that game over Czechia. Now, I don't know about you guys. I was surprised how hard Sweden showed up for that bronze medal game. I kind of thought we might see them not really care about that medal because they have now been to the medal round 18 of the last 20 years. And they've only won one gold medal in that stretch. Wow. So what do you guys feel? And Chazzy, we'll start with you here. Why is this not working for Team Sweden? What's going on?
Well, one, it's just the format of the tournament, right? Look at the caliber of junior players in there. You got 4 to 6 countries that can win this tournament at any given time now. Now expanding. Development of teams are going. And Sweden's always been there to have only one gold medal. It's almost like my Buffalo Bills back in the early 90s where you get to the bowl and you just can't get the trophy. But anyway, we won't go. This is a whole new year, and that's what it is.
Hey, you know, I think you made an excellent point there, Chazzy, about the teams getting better. We look at that quarterfinal with Latvia versus Sweden, and that was a close game. Yes, Sweden outshot them like crazy, but Latvia is now a country that's kind of taken a similar strategy to Finland and Germany. They really like to slow down the game and try to limit your offense. So I think that is a big key to why we're not seeing teams like Sweden win gold every year, or teams like America or Finland, or unfortunately Canada. Because Team Canada in this World Junior Tournament, I would argue, struggled a lot. They couldn't seem to find goal scoring when they needed it. They took a lot of bad penalties, and I'm seeing a lot of people blaming the refs for that quarterfinal loss. At the end of the day, if you played a better tournament, you wouldn't have to play Czechia in that game in the first place. Or if you played better in that game, it wouldn't have came down to a 1-goal game. Like, in my opinion, when I look at Team Canada, I really start to look at the coaching of what was the issue for that team this year. I bet Herbs Brooks is turning in his grave when he heard the players were too tired to practice. What, did Allen Iverson jump in that room and go, we're talking practice, not a game, not a game. We talking Practice. And
Practice.
I would argue in a tournament like this with this kind of format, you need to practice because
100%.
one bad game can screw your whole tournament. And we saw that for Canada. Losing to Latvia put them in such a tough situation. And, no disrespect to Latvia, but Canada should have beaten them. So more for your money, Dan. What do you think was the issue there? Why couldn't Canada do what they needed to do in this tournament?
Well, I think practice was key. And the reason why practice is key, obviously, these players are some of the best in the country. It's not about skill, but it's about building chemistry with each player. And that's why America won gold. That first line all played together in Boston College. And Canada did not have that chemistry. Maybe they could have had that chemistry by practicing more, getting to know each other more on the ice. Yeah, they did a bunch of off-ice team building, which is fantastic too. But you can tell when we try to pass the puck to each other and set up plays, it was not connecting. They needed that chemistry. And also, it comes down to picking the right players. Maybe if they sort of took a page out of America's book and pick some teammates, maybe pick 2 or 3 players from the same team, so there's a little bit of chemistry there. So I think chemistry is a big part of it. And the other part of it was coaching, of course. Not practicing is mentally insane. And never mind just forget about practicing part. Just even the strategy of power play and penalty kill, obviously it didn't work because usually when Canada wins gold, they win on special teams. And this team did not win gold because they did not win the special team category.
And you know what, Chazzy, you and I talked about this too, and Dan, I gotta agree with you 100% on a lot of those points. But Chazzy, we've talked a lot about culture. And you felt Team Canada this year didn't have that leader. I'm talking about like John Tavares and Jordan Eberle for that legendary team back in 09. Or like the Brad Marchand era in 05. Like you just didn't feel there was anyone there. And Chazzy, did you see a player that you think maybe could have taken that role, or do you think maybe they just were missing that one piece?
I'm not sure on how many senior guys are on this roster. Oh, but it just seemed younger squad. I believe they left a couple players off from last year's squad. Yeah, you need time for chemistry. You have a lot of talent on this team, and sometimes when you have a lot of talent and you're trying to find yourself in the right position to win, you're over analyzing, overthinking, and maybe that's what just happened to Team Canada. It just wasn't their tournament, and just couldn't get going. It's not like they didn't have the shots or the opportunities because I don't know, that one game against Latvia, that goaltender got peppered with about 20 shots in the last third, and they just couldn't get it by them. So yeah, it's luck of the draw. It's a short tournament. You got the best of the best in the junior hockey, and they are just on the short end of the stick on this year.
Now, there is something though that I want to get into on more about off the ice for this tournament now that the tournament is done. We have seen a bad side of some Canadian fans here who have been sending death threats to these kids. And like they're between 17 and 19 years old. I don't feel the effort wasn't there, number one. And number two, even if it wasn't, you don't threaten to kill someone because they didn't win a hockey game. That's just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm going to get into one of my famous rants here, but like, wake up. Okay, it's a junior league tournament, and this is nothing against the World Juniors. It is by far one of my favorite hockey tournaments I ever watch. But they're kids. At the end of the day, they're kids. These are fans that are old enough to be their parent. Can you imagine if your son or daughter was on that team and they're getting death threats because they didn't score a goal? Like, come on, this is absolutely ridiculous. And to the fans that are throwing their jerseys on the ice because the team didn't win, I'm sorry, but that is extremely unpatriotic, and that's something I was absolutely disgusted about. And I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but that's my stance on it. You have no reason to go after these kids. I feel they did the best they could. Chazzy, I can tell you really want to jump in here.
Oh, all I'm saying about that when you're hosting a tournament like this in your country and hockey in Canada, like that's just the passion. That's just the spark of throwing your jersey on the ice. The other stuff I don't have time for. And I think Hockey Canada has really, over the last few years, really sort of pegged that out of the younger development kids coming up. All that sort of nonchalant nonsense of wording and threats. But yeah, it's the threats are not needed in the game. But when you throw your jersey on the ice after that, like, yeah, that's just all passion.
I guess you could say that's passion. I mean, I don't know. I look at it, I think people need to have more maturity. I'm sure there was a few sody pops involved that was causing some
Oh,
of the
I'm sure.
problems.
Yes. Heat of the moment.
But I mean, I think this does bring up a point, though, as we talked about earlier. Other teams are also just getting better. Czechia has now gotten into the medal round 3 straight years. This is the first time they've done that in years. Last time they did it, Jaromir Jagr was on the team. Like, that's absolutely crazy. So I think we're seeing these countries are improving, and maybe Canadians need to realize we're good at hockey, don't get me wrong, but so's America, so's Finland, so's even teams like Slovakia. They're a team that can beat anyone on any given night. You guys might think I'm crazy. They almost put up a huge upset over Sweden to start the tournament. In these short span tournaments, anything can happen, but it does sting to lose this in home ice, and not just home ice, the capital of Canada. But let's move on. Where you got the NFL playoffs coming up, which is another time of sports that you could sing it's the most wonderful time of the year because it is
Wild card
exciting.
weekend, boys.
Like, it is awesome. Of course, the Chiefs have a bye, but we don't need to talk about the Chiefs yet, which is a beautiful thing. But the NFL playoff picture is interesting here, and we got some interesting games coming up. And we have some rivalries here that we want to play with you. Now, if you guys want to join us on this, make sure you download the Streakers app where you'll find all these head-to-head rivalry matchups. You'll see the logos on the hats. That website's going to come up there for where you can find out more about Streakers. But we're going to set up some of our head-to-head matchups. First one we're starting off with is Dan versus Craig, which is the Steelers versus the Ravens. More for your money, who do you have?
I'm picking the Steelers, and I'm going off the border. I'm picking the underdog here. Yeah, maybe you can laugh at me, but there are a couple key reasons why I'm picking the Steelers. One, the history. Steelers have been winning championships, winning playoff games, a very good playoff record. Their coach is a legendary coach. He's done an amazing job. And their defense is incredible, and you win championships by winning defense. Also, when it comes to Baltimore there, Lamar Jackson, he's had some questionable playoff games in the past, and they really rely on Henry, and Henry's had an amazing season, but is he going to run out of gas a little bit here? So I'm going with my buddy Barkley. Hopefully you're watching, and I'm going with the Steelers.
I don't know about that. Henry looks younger than ever this last week going into the playoffs. You talk about losing in the playoffs. Let's look at the Pittsburgh Steelers playoff record about losing by more than 14 points in the high moment. This is why this is why the Ravens are going to win. Lamar Jackson, Henry, you got your weapons. You look at the Steelers. You talk about momentum going into the playoffs. Steelers, before this last weekend, lost three in a row, being outscored 90-40. Now you've lost 4 in a row, going against one of the best defenses and triple threat, call them whatever, on offense. It'll be other than TJ Watt maybe be the only threat along that line, but we'll see what happens.
Forgot the bad games out of the way.
I'm going to throw a wild card in for you boys here. What happens if Russell Wilson struggles? You game plan for Russell Wilson, and Mike Tomlin just goes, screw it. Fields, get in there. He's a completely different quarterback, and I know he doesn't have that deep threat ability, but the way he can move and run the ball himself, very similar to Lamar Jackson minus the cannon of an arm. I honestly, Morphy, I think you're a little nuts. I think the Ravens are going to win this, but I do think the Steelers are going to get Justin Fields involved. I am predicting a 2-quarterback system coming out of Pittsburgh. And I think you could really see both these quarterbacks being used, involve the run game. You do some RPO options. Try to get that Ravens defense off balance. If you can control the line of scrimmage and have long, sustained drives to keep Lamar Jackson off the field, that's going to be their best chance. But, Dan, I'm going to join you in Crazy Town. The Rams are beating the Vikings. I'm calling it here. Right here on the Streakers Island podcast.
Wow.
I dare you to challenge me.
Wow.
I am the self-proclaimed analyst. So I have to be right at least once. And remember, it's a 50-50 shot. They either win or they lose. Don't argue me about economics. But I'm going to see the Rams because they're coming in. Their team's healthy. Matthew Stafford's a dog on a bone. I could really see this team pulling it off. The Vikings did not look good in that season ending against Detroit. And that's against a depleted defense. I could legitimately see the Rams taking this.
That's one hell of an upset.
You guys both are looking at me like I'm absolutely out of my mind. And maybe I am. But what do you guys think? Chazzy, we'll start with you.
No, I think Stafford has a shot. I don't know. Vikings, they're in that red zone yesterday, five times, and they came away with what, 3 field
Hard to
goals or
watch.
2 missed field goals and 2 field
Pretty
goals.
painful to watch yesterday.
Painful. But the only thing I would be concerned about is when a team gets beat that bad and they come back more than ever. So we'll see. It's going to be a coin toss. I'm still going to slightly give it to the Vikings.
More for your money? Do you think I'm crazy, or are you going to join the dark side, the side of the fake wall, to actually think that the Rams can come back out of the grave and find a way to get out of the wild card?
I think you're a little crazy. I think if it was a different different team going against them, let's say if it was a little more even match, I say even the last game we're talking about, they're a little more even the records were kind of similar. But between Minnesota and the Rams, they're not even similar. They're not even close. Minnesota had one of the best seasons in recent history. I mean, will they win the Super Bowl? I don't know, but I don't think they're going to get eliminated in the first playoff game either. So I got to go with the Vikings on this
I'm
one.
going to say one thing, though, here. Sam Darnold. He's never played a playoff game. Matthew Stafford has won a Super Bowl. Quarterbacks, you go on about defense, quarterbacks win championships. So that is my biggest reason why I'm picking the Rams. Now, Chazzy, you have another one here where we got the Chargers versus the Eagles. And I heard a little birdie told me that you don't think the little birdie's going to get the job done, and the Chargers might actually come away with a win here.
I think lightning will strike without a bottle here. You got Justin Herbert. No one talks about the Chargers defense. Lowest points on the year of just shy of 3 or just over 300. I against that corner 2 defense, I think CJ is going to struggle. Momentum, win streak going into this. And like I said, you got some weapons on that side of the ball. They're 9-2 against the spread their last 11. I just see them, and I believe they're 12-2 when favored as a road favorite in the playoffs. So look out for Lightning to strike.
You know what, more for your money? You're saying no. I'm going to agree with Chazzy here.
Whoa.
I could actually see the Chargers doing this because they got great coaching. They got a talented quarterback.
We know who's paying the bills here.
Defense is serviceable. I could see this happening. I really, really could.
I have one main reason why it's not going to happen, and that's because of Barkley, the running back for the Eagles. One of the best, besides of Henry, one of the best running backs of the year. There been a couple games he got 200-plus yards. And we talk about defense and quarterbacks, you also win playoff games on the running game in the NFL with 4 downs.
4-down football certainly does change that quite a bit, and anyone knows me, they know I hate 4-down football. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But now, speaking of football and 4 downs, let's bring it down to 3 downs here. Let's get into the CFL a little bit. We're going to go over the rest of those games, by the way, on our next episode on Thursday for the wild card. So if you're thinking we didn't talk about your favorite team, of course we're going to talk about your favorite team. Now let's get into my favorite team, and I don't care. I'm showing bias. I don't care. The Toronto Argonauts have made some moves recently by signing DeVaris McFadden, bringing him back, who was a guy that got cut at the beginning of the season, then got one of the biggest interceptions in CFL playoff history, and Mark Milton, Mark Milton was a guy that was injured to start the year. As he got in, he really was that finishing piece for the defensive backs in Toronto. Toronto's defensive backs struggled a little bit, but overall, they got better as the year went on, but they did also trade Dijon Allen today.
Yeah,
now, Dijon Allen is the former offensive lineman of the year 2 years ago. So it does show Toronto has a lot of depth at the O-line. I do agree, but I'm hoping, please, they're making room to bring in Wynton McManus, and that's why they traded Dijon Allen. Because I still say if the Argos do not keep Wynton McManus, they are not making a repeat to the Grey Cup. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's important, yeah.
Because, Wynton McManus, Dan, you can speak to this. He's the leader of that defense.
100%, yeah. And not just the defense, one of the leaders of the whole team, too. Right? He's just a legend.
He is. And, Chazzy, we've talked about this. Culture is so important. So picture your biggest leader, the guy that really brought that team together. That team's slogan is pull together. And now if you lose the guy that was the glue, let's be honest, they're going to struggle, aren't they? If they don't find a way to keep them.
Well, if you don't find to keep them, but you also got to replace that leadership and have the team buy in. But it's always tough to lose one of your leaders. It's just part of the game. You guys told me there the other day that I didn't know about was some of these CFL contracts are only 1 year. So these CFL GMs have to face this every year with multiple positions, right? So they got one of the hardest jobs to keep these. But yeah, it is tough to lose a leader, but if you're able to replace that leadership, but someone that's been there a long time, yeah, it's tough. Always tough.
But you know what's tough? Hearing us for more than 20 minutes. So we got to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to dive more into what's going on in the NHL and the NBA. Nice dive, Mr. Moore. So we will be right back. But in this commercial, there's a little sneak peek from a pretty decent rapper. You may see him on your screen right now. People telling me that I just need to be on chronic. I'm like, no way, I'm bionic. You can see me, I'm tectonic. Now you know it's like a gin and tonic. Perfect combo, me and any beat. When I'm on, it's like you won the lotto. Either way, you can't believe it. Coming against me like it's pronto. I don't need to be from Toronto to take down the 6 guy like it's a mirage. People can't believe it. I'm on this beat like it's a massage.
Come on in. Oh, there's an opportunity knocking right there. All right, Streakers.
More for your money.
Big news.
Yeah.
We have more for your money joining the Streakers Nation and the team. It takes a village to do something that we want to pull off. We're so excited. So download the latest Streakers app. Watch for the updates. Watch for more happenings. Coming for more for your money. Let's go streaking.
Welcome back to the Streakers Island podcast. Hope you enjoyed that first segment, but now we're going to dive right back into some more sports content, and we're going to get more into the NHL. And this is something we haven't seen in a long time. Chazzy and Dan, you're both older than I am. We'll get you the walkers. But when was the last time you guys remember the Canadian teams looking as good as they are? We might actually see them all make the playoffs. There's a chance if Montreal can continue that streak and Ottawa can continue that streak and Vancouver can clean up some of the issues we're going to get into it a bit later. Chazzy, I'll start with you. When was the last time you remember the Canadian teams being this solid?
All 6 of them?
7.
It's gotta be. So what is it? It's 3-4 years where we had a shot. But then, yeah, like you said, they got to keep it up. It's a long season, and hopefully they can do it. It would be pretty exciting for Canada if we had 6 tickets in the playoffs this year.
I agree, man. It would be a lot of fun. And you're saying 6 out of 7, so you're saying Montreal's not going to make the playoffs. I get it. I'm kidding. I kid. Any team's going to fall apart. It's going to be my Maple Leafs. I'm well aware of that with the way we're losing all.
You know how I feel about that blue and white.
But speaking of the Leafs, let's start getting into those. And Dan, who are 2 players that you feel in Toronto are difference makers? There's your obvious ones like your Austin Matthews, but who do you think is really making a difference on that team this year?
They put me on the spot where I said one in the notes, but I got one. I'll come up with the second one in a couple seconds here. But anyway, my first pick was Chris Tanev. Chris Tanev was the big free agent splash, was the first free agent on July 1st. When everyone's sitting there on the decks waiting for something to happen. He is the number 1 in shot blocks in the league. He's a plus 16 playing on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you win Stanley Cups by great defense. So he's not the flash of Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and all of them, but I would definitely keep an eye on him as being a big difference for Toronto. The other huge difference is it putting me on the spot there, just coming up with this top of my head. I'm going to go completely off the board. I'm going to say Steve Lorentz. And you're going to say the exact same thing as I said back in July. Who the hell is Steve Lorentz? Well, Steve Lorentz turns out to be a great fourth line guy. He's got 4 goals and 4 assists with 8 points halfway through the season. And oh yeah, he leads the Leafs in hits with over 100 hits halfway through the year. And he's very one of the few players that Berube has played every single game so far this year. And oh yeah, he won the Stanley Cup in Florida last year. So definitely keep an eye on him. Amazing minimum league signing contract back in July there.
Man, that's a good point there. I love that you said Lorenz. I really like him as a player. I think he was the type of player the Leafs really desperately needed. And I think he's a big difference maker. Another big difference maker for the Leafs, who unfortunately is going to be sidelined for a while, is Jake McCabe. Jake McCabe has just been recently placed on the injury reserve. They're not announcing officially what it was, but let's be honest, it's probably a concussion.
Yeah.
The way his head hit the ice there, it was pretty brutal.
It's not so much how it hit his ice, it's how he sat back up after laying on the ice. He almost like laid down like McCabe and Chara back in the day, like a lag doll. So that's pretty unfortunate to see.
It's tough to see. But let's go on to the Montreal Canadiens and Chazzy. I know you're a big Habs fan. They're actually looking better this year. So who is 1 or 2 players that you see on that team as difference makers?
Hey, he gave him 1 or 2. He gave me 2. Come on, he's got to do 2 now. Keep it fair. Just because he's the boss doesn't mean he gets away with just 1. He's got to do 2. I was put on a spot with 2. Now you got to be put on a spot with 2. Let's go.
So with Montreal, it's the youth, but it's the elephant in the room, Patrick Laine. 8 goals, all on the power play. Couple apples in 12 games since he's returned. You got a solid blue line with Lane Hudson. So that's just going to be a treat for years to come. And then you got Cole and Nick. If they can continue to score in the playoffs and make some plays with their speed, then I think we definitely got a shot to go deep into the playoffs, make it into the playoffs. But yeah, Habsville, a lot of optimism.
You know what, though, is another guy that I'd like to mention on Montreal if they're able to make the playoffs. And I know he hasn't had a great year this year, but Josh Anderson. I know he's been struggling a little bit, but he is the type of guy, if you make the playoffs, he'll perform. So maybe watch down the stretch. If Montreal can continue to build these wins, I think Josh Anderson could become a bigger impact player. And if they don't get going down the stretch, sorry, Chazzy, I think Patrick Laine might be on the trade block to try to bring in more youth. They just feel the team's not there yet. But I'm going to move on to the Calgary Flames. And the Calgary Flames are a Canadian team that are doing way better than anyone expected. Nazem Kadri said it himself in the interview. He said, no one expected us here, did they? With that big old grin on his face. I love Nazem Kadri.
They call us experts.
Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah. So for Calgary,
I would say
and I wasn't with Toronto.
I'd say, oh man, I wish he was still a Leaf. But for Calgary, one of the players I would say is Dustin Wolf. He has given them really stable goaltending that no one expected. Everyone thought Vladar was going to kind of take over that role, and he's been okay. But Dustin Wolf's been really solid. He is winning those games at home, and even games where he's struggling, he seems to be making that one save to keep his team in it. So I would say Dustin Wolf, and I would also go Backlund. The reason why I say Backlund, he is such a good defensive centerman. I could really see him making a big difference for Calgary down the stretch. And I'm going to say it here first, here on the Streakers Island podcast. I think Calgary's going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to squeeze in towards the bottom. But, Dan, let's throw this back to you. Ottawa Senators. Who on that team do you think is a difference maker? Because that team seems to be finally finding its way.
Well, even though you didn't ask me to do 2 this time, so I did 2 for the Leafs, I would do 2 for Ottawa as well.
What a gem.
Why off the hop here? The one I did make in the notes was Lunas. I think that's how you say it. Lunas? Is that right? Sorry if it isn't, but anyway. Lunas Omar. Lunas Omar. So the goaltender for Ottawa. So I'm going with Jacob and picking the goalie. Reason why I'm going to the goalie for Ottawa is Ottawa has tried really hard to find a number 1 franchise caliber goalie, and they haven't in probably over a decade at least. Like Patrick Leem, arguably maybe, but besides that, they haven't really had a great goalie in a very long time. And Omar has been a phenomenal goalie. Yeah, he's injured now. Before his injury, he had 3 shutouts halfway through the year. over 900 save percentage, well over 900, under 2.5 goals against average. And I think he's the difference maker for Ottawa this year. Now, the $1 million question is he has never been a true number one goalie. He's had all his success in Boston, sharing the net with Swayman. And now we've seen Boston make the wrong choices. Swayman has really struggled with being the number one goalie. Omar so far has done great as the number one goalie. But the question is, how will he be in the playoffs? Because he's never played over 40 years in never played over 40 games in the season before. So now
40 years straight, I'd be impressed.
Yeah, it's really impressive. So now hopefully he gets back into it. It'll probably be about 50, 60 games under his belt. Will he be enough to make a cup run for Ottawa? I say yes. I think he's going to. Swayman, not so much. Boston made the wrong decision. I think Omar's going to get Ottawa into the playoffs and give him past that first round. Hopefully they don't face the Leafs. But anyway, I think they're going to do very, very well. The second player I'm going to point out for Ottawa is not a new player for Ottawa, but it's Claude Giroux. I was really surprised that Claude Giroux signed with Ottawa a couple years back, and they got him as a free agent for these big playoff moments. Now, they never got to those big playoff moments, but you need a true leader in the dressing room in the playoffs. Even though he's not the captain of the team, he's like the true leader, veteran player, and he still puts up some pretty half-decent numbers. So I'm going to say my second player of Ottawa will watch out Claude Giroux.
Now, one thing I'm going to say quickly, Craig Anderson is furious at you when he's watching this episode.
Oh, no, Craig, I'm sorry I forgot about you. I love the fact that you love Corvettes. I'm sorry, buddy.
Like, man, he is watching this show, and he is picking up his beverage and throwing it across the room. But
I'm very sorry, Craig Anderson. You're a great goalie.
On Ottawa would be Drake Batherson. I really like this guy. He is a physical two-way forward that can make a big difference, and him and Brady Tkachuk together is a lot of fun to watch. But now, Chazzy, let's get back to you here and talk about the Winnipeg Jets. They are a team that have really surprised people this year and basically being the best team in the NHL, and I would argue the best Canadian team, even though everyone gets mad at me when I make that argument, but they can get over it, throw the bridge. Who are players on Winnipeg that you feel are the difference maker for that team?
Well, one of my 6 Canadian teams that will make the playoffs. This is going to, I think Winnipeg's in an interesting situation, and it's going to come down to how they perform at the end after this big tournament. You have Team Canada, you got Josh Morrissey, which I think he's going to become even a more household name after this tournament because of his defensive leadership and what he's going to do for Team Canada. Then you also, on the other side, you got Connor Hellebuyck, former Vezina. If these guys have a lot of workload going in, if they can keep it up, Winnipeg doesn't have that favorable playoff record, would be concerning, but they definitely have the talent. We'll see what happens in this tournament. If they can continue to play at a high level and Kyle Ehlers and Mark all can continue to score and make their offensive playmaking ability, they will be lethal. How deep they go, I'm not sure. But it's going to come down to this tournament, I think, with some of the big stars on the workload.
That is because the Four Nations is something new, and it's a lot harder on these players than the All-Star game.
Maybe as a benefit to the Leafs by like John Tavares, Morgan Riley, Chris Tanev not making Team Canada.
We'll get into that in another episode.
So they can rest. They'll need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially John Tavares. Old man Tavares needs his beauty sleep. But I would also say Kyle Connor is another guy on Winnipeg that I'd watch out for. He's a fun player to watch. A lot of speed. Great shot. So watch out there. But let's move on now to the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I could take the easy pick and say McDavid, but I'm not going to. Mm-hmm. I think truly for Edmonton to be successful, Skinner it's got to play well. At least okay. So I would say he's one guy I'd watch for on Edmonton, because say what you want, in that playoff run, besides the odd bad game, he played very well. So I think he's going to be critical for this team down the stretch. And I am also going to say Corey Perry. The reason why I say Corey Perry is I want to kind of ignore some of the superstars like the McDavids, the Hymans, and Nugent Hopkins and these guys. I would say guys like Corey Perry and Jeff Skinner are going to have to be big because Edmonton has always struggled with secondary scoring in the playoffs. We saw that in the Cup Finals where Florida had all the secondary scoring and Edmonton didn't. Edmonton's a cup or bust team. Let's just be honest. So they are going to be looking to make that work, and that secondary scoring has to be huge. So watch out for that team. But let's move on now to the Vancouver Canucks. Vancouver Canucks are another team here that you could argue some of the players to watch for would be their goaltending. Demko's been injured a lot, but if he's healthy, they make a big difference. And normally you'd say JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, but there's been some dressing room issues there, hasn't there been, boys? There's been a lot of drama in Vancouver. I know
like a
it's
soap
big
opera
filming area, so maybe a soap's going on. But do you see either one of those guys getting moved by the deadline? Chazzy, I'm going to start with you. Do you see either Elias Pettersson or JT Miller being traded to just cut the drama?
I'm going to say yes. Are they going to want to do that? If you asked them at the beginning of the season, would they envision that? No. But there's a lot of pressure in Vancouver to win now. They had a lot of momentum going into this year, and they hear all this coming out of the locker room. It's devastating for Canuck fans. But I'm going to say yes. They're going to have to do something. If it's that big of a rift and you're going to separate the locker room, you're not going to want that going into the second half.
And so more for your money. Who's moved? JT Miller or Elias Pettersson?
I'm going to go a little crazy here. I'm going to move Pettersson. And the reason why, he's younger, has more potential, blah, blah, blah. Like you said, Vancouver wants to win now. And when you want to win now, you need leadership, which Miller has. He's one of your leaders. And the other thing with Pettersson, if you get rid of him now, he's just going to want more and more money as play goes on and he gets older and stuff like that. So trading him now when his contract's kind of in favorable trading to move, it's going to free up a lot of cap space, and then you can go and get some more veterans at the trading deadline. So yeah, it's going to hurt Vancouver in the long run, but I think they could, with trading a key aspect like Patterson, gaining a couple key veteran guys in that dressing room, they could go up and compete with Edmonton there and make a serious cup run with JT Miller and amazing blue lines they have too.
Okay, I'm going to say this here. I don't fully disagree with you about trading Pettersson, but it's not going to happen. No. Elias Pettersson will not be moved. He is a elite talent, and he's young. JT Miller is good, and he's older. He is not what the new NHL is. He is not the fan favorite in Vancouver. You will move JT Miller. JT Miller will be moved. Or Vancouver's going to keep his status quo and get booted out first round. Because when you have that chemistry issue in the locker room, and we've already talked about this so much in this episode, when the leadership group isn't getting along, it's a complete disaster. But Chazzy, I'm going to bring up some Leaf talk with you. I know you love talking the Leafs. I think you and I might actually agree on something here, though. Jonathan Toews is rumored to be coming to Toronto. I don't know if he's just coming here for some poutine, but, I don't understand why the Leafs should bring in Jonathan Toews. Chazzy, what are your thoughts? Do you think the guy who can't skate should be on the Leafs? Or do you think he should just retire?
It's like bringing an old recipe out that just doesn't work anymore. I just don't know what you're going to get from that. I just don't know what you're going to get more than what you already have right now with the core leadership group out of that group that they have right now with patches and such. Anyway, it's Toronto. They want the big names. They'll sell the name on the back of the jersey. All those young kids that wanted to have a Toews Leafs jersey, they'll be able to have that for a couple months. But
it's true.
It's a repeat of the early 2000s. The game has changed, but still, this is what we're talking about.
Dan, what do you think? I know you're a little more leaning towards you think this is a good move.
100%. Reason why is because it's the end of the course of the NA season. So a league minimum contract. And forget about the early 2000s. The past 5 years or so, the Leafs have always had that key veteran guy. They always had Old Man Spessa, and they've had Jumbo Joe, the St. Thomas Elephant dude.
And what happened those years? What happened when you had those veterans?
Well, it's
Early
helped them with
exit.
the younger
Early
guys, right? It
Early
got them
exit.
into the playoffs. And I was going to say, they also lost Gino. So they don't have that key old school veteran. I'm not saying to sign
Then why are
Jonathan
we paying
Taves for
John Tavares $11 million?
even though he's not your captain, you still need a good veteran.
But don't you
Okay,
already
I
have
signed
Cal
him for
Jones?
$700,000, and he doesn't even have to play every game. He's just on the bench. He's in the locker room, and you already signed him $700,000. He's going to get the one goal, but he'll get that one key goal that gets him past the first and second round of the playoffs.
Or now you're going to miss that one penalty kill because Connor Dewar is out of the lineup, or David Kemp is out of the lineup, or you're not going to have that one big hit because Steven Lorentz is out of the lineup. There's nowhere to put him.
Well, I think it's Ryan
make
Reeves is out of
any
the lineup,
sense.
unfortunately.
Ryan Reeves, Steven Lorentz has pushed Ryan Reeves out of the lineup. So now do you want Jonathan Taves to push Lorentz out of the lineup? Because that's what's going to happen. Yes, that's what'll happen. Or you take out David Kemp, who's arguably one of the best fourth liners in the league. Or you take out Connor Dewar, who's one of the best penalty killers in the league. And you're going to go, get rid of Nick Robertson. Nick Robertson
100%.
on the third line is flying.
Not lately.
He's
Not the
like
last couple
third.
games. Okay, he's
And
had
he's
what, 6 goals? 6? Look, I can do it with my fingers, bro. He's only had 6 goals halfway through the year. It's supposed to be his 25, 30 goal scorer. His brother scores 40 plus goals in Dallas. He's got 6, bro. 6
Okay, but you're
goals.
comparing
That's
apples
it.
to oranges, comparing the brothers. You're comparing apples to oranges. I can take a TV apart. You can't even turn your PlayStation on. Like, it's come on. But you know what? Before I go upstairs and really give my brother a piece of my mind, we got to go to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to go over some of the top quarterbacks in the CFL, and we're going to get back into making some of our picks. We got some games coming up on Wednesday. Can't wait to get into them. The Streakers Island podcast is here, baby. We're talking NHL, CFL, NFL, and of course, those grassroots sports and so much more. Make sure you tune in every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Welcome to the island. Welcome back, everybody, to the Streakers Island podcast. We are into our third and final segment of this episode, but you might be getting upset. We're back Thursday. Don't cry too much, okay? Because every little thing gonna be all right. Anyways, let's get into the rest of the show. I'm a little nuts. And we're going to get back into the CFL here a little bit, and we're going to talk about some of the quarterbacks in this league. Chazzy, I know you don't watch CFL as much, but to educate you and some of our viewers, the CFL is a lot more of a passing league than the NFL, as you only have 3 downs to get those 10 yards instead of 4. So you basically got to get it in 2. So we're going to talk quarterbacks. And Chazzy, I'm going to put you on the spot here, though. What quarterback in the CFL do you think brings the most impact to their team?
Well, I was a little hesitant when you guys gave me this homework on going through, but I was very, very excited what's going to happen out of the West next year in Calgary. They acquired this, from what I'm reading, some young phenom, product of the Oregon Ducks in 2015, was drafted, played last year in BC, but look out, Stampeder Nation. Buckle up, because this kid is going to electrify the CFL. He is a dynamic playmaker, highlight reel, deep ball, accuracy, a dual threat. And the biggest thing is his proven leadership when he's not only on the field, but off the field. He just rises up the team. So look out, Stampederville. I'm excited for you. And it should be a good season out West.
And you know what? I'm going to piggyback on that a bit on Vernon Adams Jr. He's a guy that's bounced around the league a lot, because unfortunately, every time it looks like he has a home, the team brings in another quarterback. It looked like he was going to be the guy in Montreal. They bring in Trevor Harris. It looks like he's going to be the guy in BC when Nathan Rourke goes to the NFL. Well, the NFL didn't work out for Nathan Rourke. So then BC brought him back, and I'm going to say this right now, I think BC made a mistake by going back to Nathan Rourke. But now in Calgary, he's the guy. Jake Maier's no longer there, who was their starter last year. And I think for VA, he is going to be the guy that brings in the leadership, he brings in the culture, and the Stampeders get back to their winning ways again. Because in the CFL, if you have a good quarterback, this gives you a much better chance. And we're in a beautiful time in this league where every team has a good quarterback in the starting position. And some of them, their backups could be starters in this league. So I really like your pick, Chazzy, with Vernon Adams Jr. He's a big favorite of mine. The only issue is with him, when he's good, he's the best in the league, but when he's bad, he's bad. I don't think you're going to see much of that in Calgary because they're a team that also likes to run the ball. They like to mix that in. But I think that's a great pick. More for your money. I know who you're picking. We both kind of argued over this one, but I let you take him because I'm just a nice brother. You're going with Swag Kelly. Why are you taking Chad Kelly as the best quarterback in the league and the most interesting?
Well, what makes it interesting is he has a winning quarterback pedigree in his family with being nephew of Jim Kelly, legendary Buffalo Bills quarterback. And Chad Kelly can do it both ways. He is great with the arm, but as we saw in the Grey Cup 3 years back, he's also great at winning, and he basically won the Grey Cup of that legendary 21-yard one in the fourth quarter. The other thing about Chad Kelly is he just has a lot of leadership in the locker room too, on and off the field. Representing the Argos well in the community. Trying to get the team working together, pulling together, as to say. And he's just a really, really special guy. So for those reasons, I'm going to say Chad Kelly's the best in the CFL, and definitely watch out for him.
You know what? I'm going to piggyback a little bit off that too. Chad Kelly won the MOP 2 years ago, Most Outstanding Player, which to non-CFL fans, that's like the MVP. It's just we like mops. Screw your broom. So he was the mop in the CFL. In that Eastern semifinal game against Ottawa, he played outstanding. Only missed 2 passes that whole game, and one of them was a throwaway. He was outstanding. He also ran in for a touchdown. Threw a couple of touchdowns. I think he got over those demons of that Eastern final 2 years ago where he just completely collapsed. But I will say the same thing about Chad Kelly that I said about Vernon Adams Jr. When he's on, he is the best quarterback in the league. When he's off, he is the worst quarterback in the CFL. And this is coming from an Argo fan, which is why the Argos are definitely going to want to keep Nick Arbuckle or Cameron Dukes.
Lock him up.
That insurance policy, especially since Chad Kelly's coming off the broken leg. That was hard to watch. But I do see what you're saying about Chad Kelly. Now, I'm going to go off the board here on my pick. I could easily go Zach Collaros. I could go Bo Levi Mitchell. I could go Trey Ford as the most interesting quarterback in the league. With his dual threats, how he can do things that are incredible. But I'm going to say Drew Brown out of the Ottawa Redblacks. And here's my reasoning why. His first year as a starter, before he got injured, was one of the front runners for MOP. In that playoff game against Toronto, he played outstanding. His first ever playoff start, he went out there and he balled out. He got Ottawa back to the playoffs when the year before they won 4 bloody games. And he got them to a 500 record and having the best home record in the CFL. Drew Brown is a guy that I'm excited about. And he has that one big difference between Chad Kelly and Vernon Adams Jr. He doesn't seem to have those games where he's just god awful. There's some games where he might not be as sharp, but it's not the type that he's either going to be fantastic or terrible. He's consistent. Exactly. Consistent. I do wonder, though, if he doesn't have the leadership qualities as much because he's more used to being a lower guy on the totem pole, and he's very quiet. Well, let's move on to the NHL. Of course, though, if you're a CFL fan, make sure you stay locked to the Streakers Island podcast. My brother's laughing. I don't even care. We're going to keep going to the NHL. There's 4 games coming up on Wednesday, but we're going to focus on the Canucks versus the Caps in our Streakers rivalry. Of course, make sure you follow us in our own sports booth in the Streakers app. Join our island. Now, Capitals versus the Canucks. Chazzy, who are you taking? Do you think the Canucks are going to get over the drama and they're going to find a way to win? Or do you think the Capitals, ran by Ovechkin, are going to continue to roll and chase Toronto for first in that division?
Yeah, I think OV's back. I think they've reeled off 3 of 5. They got the momentum. They're on a different level this year. Give me the Caps easily over the Canucks.
Easily.
Ooh.
Okay, but I was going to throw this to Dan, but no, not easily. Okay. I'm actually thinking the Canucks are going to take this one because the Capitals have been on a bit of a roll. I think they might come in a little cocky. Their goaltending's been inconsistent. Come on, you're seeing their goalies score on themselves.
Okay, that
Tell
was
me
one
Lindgren has done
bad
it
play,
twice.
bro. You were saying he could even make Team Canada the other day off camera.
I agree. I said that the other day, but not today. I went in my crystal ball. It's magical. You can't see because if I showed it to you, you'd have to go blind. I'd have to get the Men in Black little boop boop. But Canucks, I think they're going to take this one. So I'm saying Canucks. Chazzy's saying Capitals. More for your money. You are the tiebreaker here. Canucks or Capitals? Dun, dun, dun.
I'm saying Capitals because Ovi is chasing after the record. Okay, he wants to get it done this year. He probably wants to hit 900 this year. I don't think he's going to, but he's going to try very, very hard. And not just the record. Forget about the record for a second. The end of the day, because of a lockout draft in 05, Ovi's always going to be compared to Sid the Kid. At the end of the day, Sid the Kid's got 3 Stanley Cups, and Ovi has 1 Stanley Cup. So Ovi's going to want to make a big playoff push, and he's almost hitting 40. It's just kind of his last chance to make a big push for the cup. In order to do that, you really need home ice. That's a huge advantage. We're going to try every single point here, every single game to get that top victory home ice for the playoff push. So for those reasons, I'm going to pick Washington. And of course, with Vancouver, as we were talking earlier, with the dressing room drama, they still got some stuff to figure out.
Fair enough. You guys are wrong, but fair enough. We'll find out when we come back on Thursday, I guess.
But we'll check your record on the app.
Yeah, exactly.
Check your record in the app. Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see what you are in your last 10.
Yeah, we're Swedish now.
Let's move on to the Toronto Raptors. Now, they're going to be facing the Knicks on Wednesday, but before we even get into that game, they've looked really bad.
Oh, yeah.
They can't defend. They can't score. They can't shoot. Is this the rebuild that we wanted to see? Like, yes, RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes are exciting, and they're good players. But do we think the rest of the team is developing enough? Like, when you look at a guy like Grady Dick, is shooting percentages improved drastically?
I think he's a dick, Bill.
I don't know. I just don't know. Chazzy, I'm going to throw this to you. Do you think the Raptors internally, I'm not thinking about the fans right now, internally, do you think they're happy with the progress? Or do you think at the end of the year, if they only log 15 to 18 wins, do they hit the panic button?
I think they've probably already hit the panic button. You know what? When you're getting blown out, like actually blown out of games consistently, I think last 4 games they've pretty much not competed in any of them. Tough to swallow that pill as a fan. Yeah, it's I don't have much to say about the Raptors this year. It seems to me in the last few years it's always rebuild, and you had incremental of progression.
Mm-hmm.
This last, I don't know, year and a bit, it's just been a slide all the way back. And I don't know what their solution is or what they're going to do, because they always say we're going to make big trades, and all the players that they trade, they go out and shoot the lights off in the cities that they go off to. So,
you know what? I think a big issue in Toronto is they don't have that leadership. You look at Kyle Lowry, he's hanging on my wall. He is a guy that, in my opinion, is the greatest Raptor in Raptor history. Yes, I know you're thinking Vince Carter, more for your money. Vince Carter didn't win a championship. Kyle Lowry did. And he was a big part of that leadership group. And I think the Raptors are missing that leader. Yes, they have young talent in Barnes and Barrett, and Dick, but I think they're really missing that leadership. And I do wonder, do they make a move to try to bring in a veteran just to help move along the process? But as Dan, you pointed out too, they've had a lot of injuries this year. I mean, Scotty Barnes has been injured, 2 big injuries twice this year. RJ Barrett's been injured once this year. Perdo, I believe, was the other guy who was injured. They have not had a healthy lineup all season. And that is a big component. But at the end of the day, good teams find a way to win. Bad teams find ways to lose. So do we think the Raptors are going to get another win to try to get to double digits? That's got to be their goal at this point. They got to try to get to double digits by the end of January. Do you think they're going to be able to beat the Knicks? I'm going to say no. I think they're going to continue to get blown out until they learn how to play team defense and stop trying to shoot 80,000 three-pointers that they just can't hit. More for your money, what do you think? I know you're not a big basketball fan, but do you think the Raptors are going to be able to get the job done, or do you think the Knicks are just going to go in there and do their thing?
What do I say? I'm not a big basketball fan. I'll say on camera here, I have to go to a basketball games. I can't really knock it till I try it, right? So we'll call it here, right on the podcast, on the app. At some point this season, I will make it to a Raptors game. So that way I can give it a chance and see, and who knows, maybe I will be a fan. But from what I have seen, I'm going to go off the map here. Challenge me on the Streakers app. I think the Raptors are going to win. Reason why I think they're going to win is to what? They got to win eventually, okay? Like, they got 7 wins all year.
I'll pick you up.
We're hoping double digits, right? I think even they can hit 15 wins this year. So I think the Raptors are going to win. Also, it's the first time practically all year they actually have a healthy lineup. That's going to be a huge advantage for them. When we talk about what happened, yeah, we lost a lot of players, but we did that to get Leonard, which got them the championship. And I admit, I joined the bandwagon. I watched those playoff games, and it was pretty amazing to see them bring a championship up to the North. So it sucks we're still paying for it 5 years later, but I think that's what happened. But anyway, for this game, I'm going to pick the Raptors.
That championship is going to cost you for years to come.
The what?
I said that championship is going to cost you for years to come.
Literally, yeah.
But Chazzy, what do you think? Are the Raptors going to get one step closer to double-digit wins this year, or are they going to lose to the Knicks?
Oh, they'll definitely lose to the Knicks, and they're not going to get any closer.
Isn't the Knicks a team of Jay-Z?
I got nothing positive to add to this at all. If you're a Raptors fan.
You know what, though? Speaking of positive, we're going to wrap up the show. Not that that's the positive. That's the negative of today. But here on the island, More for Your Money always says there's an island mindset. So, Dan, what's the island mindset for today?
Well, it's really positive quote of the day. And positive quote of the day today is a positive anything is better than a negative nothing. We come back to our Toronto Raptors here. Do what? 7 wins are better than 0 wins. So that is a positive. That is something.
Well, after that great positive quote from Dan, I'm going to end on another positive. We're back on Thursday, boys. So make sure you tune in Thursday for our second ever episode of the podcast. And I hope you enjoyed. Like us, follow us, share the podcast. When I say follow us, don't actually show up to my house. That'd be kind of creepy. But follow us on social media, Streakers Island Podcast. Follow the Streakers app on social media as well. Learn more about how they are putting the fan back in fantasy. And until then, we'll see you on Thursday.
Bye-bye.